There's your tape measure here. So if I wanted to measure, let's just say I want to zoom in on this mesh and measure. I'm using this one now. Sometimes it's easier. Let me just stop. If I want to measure something real close, sometimes it's easier to click on the magnifier over here and just make a box. It zooms me right in. So let's say I wanted to measure the distance between, say, this point and here, you know, because I want to know how big this stitch length is approximately. So I'll click my measuring tape and I'll just click here and there, and you'll notice this is highlighted in red. That's the one, basically it's selected. But what Embird does then is it creates this horizontal line, these black dots here, because whenever you measure an angle and so on, you always start from your horizontal and then you go and measure. You know, you make an arrow going to the left kind of now. And so if you look at this line, just the actual line, well, that's 1.65 mils. So from this point to this point. But if, let's say, you wanted to know the vertical distance between this point and this point, meaning this distance, I'm going to move these over just so we can see my squares. This distance is 0.44, and the reason it's negative, what I'm finding is that Embird figures you're starting here, coming up here, and you're at this point and you're going down, so you're measuring from here down to this point. So you're going in a negative direction, a negative y direction. So this is like a y distance, if you're thinking, you know, geometry, even algebra, how it relates to geometry. So that's a negative direction. And then this distance here relates to this distance here. And I'm thinking that it's going in a negative direction. It doesn't matter for our purposes, but I'm thinking it's going negative because it's showing it, you know, this is an X direction. So it's not going to start here to measure the X direction. I mean, you could come up here and make your triangle that way. But either way, when I go from this point to this point, I'm going in a negative direction. You know, if this were a ruler, this would be negative going to the left. I think that's how they're doing it. And then, so let's bring this, whoops. Let me Control Z. Okay, let me bring this down, back down here. I can just see it better when it's like this. I can visualize it better. So, and then down here for the angle, Well, this first picture is always the angle that the first line, and we only have one line drawn, it's the angle that this line makes with this horizontal, the imaginary horizontal, these black dots with the horizontal plane, I guess you could call it. So it always starts at these black dots, at this horizontal line. And you can see these little red dots show what that angle is. So it starts at these black dots and it goes over, and that angle is 164 degrees. And that makes sense because, you know, 90 degrees, if this were up here, you can watch it change over there on the right. You know, there it is at 90. And then it gets bigger. And we're back down to the 164 or what have you. So, but let's just say you wanted to know the distance, or the angle, I should say, between, say, this stitch and this stitch. Well, in that case, you would drop, this one is selected. Well, you can't select another one here. If you try to click anywhere, it doesn't happen. You have to be on this one to select another point. So let's say I want to come down to this intersection, this stitch point here. And so all the numbers change now because I'm on this point. And on this point, I can make my triangle like here and here. You know, they're really supposed to be over the boxes. Or I can make it here and here. It's the same triangle. So if I looked at it here, and I kind of think they like for you to have it be here, have one of the sides be here, because that's the horizontal. See the black dots? When you look at these numbers, they'll make more sense if you make your triangle up here. So at any rate, the distance between these 2 points, this is highlighted in red, it's 1.78 mils. The vertical distance, this one here, between these 2 points, they're apart 1.25 mils. So if you think about a right triangle, you know, the right angle is right here. This is the 90 degree, and the one opposite is the hypotenuse. That's always longer than this one or this one. So the absolute distance between the 2 points is 1.78, but the sides adjacent, both of them are smaller than the 1.78. So this vertical distance is 1.25, and they have it as a positive number, I guess because you're starting here and going up. And then the horizontal distance between these 2 points, so from here to here, is 1.27. Both of these numbers are smaller than this hypotenuse here. So 1.27 here is negative, I guess, because you're starting at this point and going left. So that's still kind of hard to wrap your head around, the negative numbers and and so on. But like I said, for us digitizers, that doesn't make a whole lot of, it doesn't matter. So at any rate, and then when you get down here to the angle, now this angle that's showing is still the angle based off of just the first side and or not the first side, I'm sorry, the side in question, the side that's highlighted. So this side is highlighted, but it's the angle that the highlighted side makes with the horizontal. You can see this dotted line represents the horizontal. So this line and this horizontal, this angle right here, is negative 135. And the reason why it's negative is because whenever you measure angles and you go downward on a unit, they call it a unit circle, whenever you go downward, you're going in a negative direction. If I were to drag this point, let me take this off. If I were to take this point and watch the numbers, now with the horizontal plane, this point is making a 90-degree angle. But look at this picture. This point and this point, so these two lines, that's what these two lines are, make an interior angle of 74.3 degrees. So, you know, that's smaller than the 90 degrees that's being made by the horizontal plane. And that makes sense. And the reason why this number here is always a positive number, because it's just an interior angle. Interior angles aren't positive or negative. They don't show a direction or anything. They're just an absolute value. So at any rate, so if I put it back here, the angle that this line makes with the horizontal is negative 135, but the angle that it makes with just two sides, these two sides, is a little bit less than that. It's just 120.2. And this distance of this stitch is 1.92. So, you know, it's a little bigger than this distance here. If I want to know this distance again real quick, I just click this blue one here. It's 1.61. And again, I can see the angle that this point makes with the horizontal is 164. And you can see it starts here and it goes in a positive direction. If this line were down here, notice now it's making a negative angle with the horizontal because it starts here and goes down. So it's kind of neat how everything is so mathematical with these measurements. I mean, you really can get detailed and you can really see your stitches and know what's going on if you needed to know all that, you know. Some people just care about the length of the stitch and that's it. So if 1.64 is okay, then you're good. Now, I did want to make a note of this area right here. If I zoom in, and I'll use my page up, page down button for zooming. So page up is zoom in. And I'll hold the right mouse to pan over to get that centered. If you look closer, this stitch here is not going from here to there, you can see a stitch point right there. So I just went from here to there because, you know, I wanted to get a bigger viewing and explanation so that my lines weren't really short, you know, and then you don't see these lines. But in actuality, if I wanted to see the length of this stitch and this stitch, I'd probably go into vector mode, because now I can see exactly where it ends, or where it starts and where it ends. So then you could just kind of, I have snap to nodes on, so this is snapping to a node down here. So if you didn't want it to snap, you could X out of here and uncheck snap to nodes in your editing screen. Let me show you. I'll hit escape to get out, and then I'll just click any object, and I'll just hit Control E for editing. Snap to nodes over here, these are your snapping tools. Snap to nodes is activated, so I can uncheck it, and I could check snap to object edges, because then this is a vector object edge, so it will slide along here, you know, the node will. These here are not vector nodes unless you convert this to manual stitches. These here are just stitch points, so it's not going to snap over here. But oh, I'm actually on the wrong one. I meant to be on this one, sorry. So I guess I could have snap to edges on, and then just hit enter or check, grab your measuring tool again, click anywhere, and then, you know, this will slide, and you could really get a good, you know, if I zoom in, you could really get accurate. So there's the first node, and then the second node, like I said, it won't snap because these are stitch points, but you can really see. This is only 0.97 mils, and that's probably too small. It is for my taste, because you figure your needle is about a mil in width, not a mil, probably less than a mil. A lot of people will use 1.2 as their minimum stitch length. So when you measure this and you see that it's 0.97, you may say to yourself, ugh, that's too short. So then you'll stop this, you'll hit escape, and you'll click on this mesh, which here's my mesh up here, and I'll just go into parameters and see what I have the stitch length set for. And that's what's nice about the mesh. You can control the stitch lengths right off the bat over here without having to turn this into a manual object, then manual to connection, connection to outline. So here's what my stitch lengths are set at, and you can see I have my minimum length at 1.1, and then these at 3.0. So I can't recall if this wasn't the default. I must have set that. So I'm going to just go up to 1.5 for the minimum. That's the highest minimum you can get. And I do want it to be able to make pretty curves in here, you know. And this design is 190 by 75 mils. But I should make my max length my 2.2 that I like, backspace, for quilting in the hoop. That's what I like to use, because that most mimics 11 stitches per inch that I use on the long arm. So then I'll hit apply, and it'll go gray for a while, and then now it's back. And so we'll hit done. We'll come back over here. We'll grab our measuring tool. Snap to object edges is still on. So this got a little bit bigger, but you know, it's not the 1.5. So here's the thing, like this is a small curve, and Embird tries to get your minimum of 1.5, but sometimes it just can't. If something curves, you got to land a stitch point, you know. So just keep that in mind. But I'm okay with that. And let's go into 3D and just move this out of the way. You know, it looks fine to me if I hit escape, Control A, Control 1 to zoom to selected objects. And this was the one here. Let me just do the magnifier. I'll go in a little bit farther. You know, where was it? I think it was right here. But I think the stitches look fine. They still have their curve. And, you know, I'm not too small. I'm not too large where it looks too choppy. But remember, when you're at 1:1, it's going to look really nice. So again, Control A, Control 1 to zoom to selected, and that looks nice. So I just wanted to let you know about that and how a lot of times that's what people use the measuring tool for, is to measure their stitch lengths. All right then, till next time, guys. And remember, if you need to purchase Embird Studio, be sure to go to my website, wequiltstudio.com, and click on the Embird bird to get your coupon code for 10% off. So, and that's for, you know, anything over $100. So if you buy a module, if you buy a bunch of alphabets, if you upgrade and you need to get over $100, you can add a couple alphabets, and then you'll get your 10% off, thereby kind of getting one of your alphabets for free. So that's always there for us. Embird is really good to us. We're very lucky. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.